Welcome back to Titans of Food Service. And thank you again for joining me here on my Across America in 50 Weeks tour, where I'm interviewing one Titan of Food Service from every single state in the country. And on this week's episode, I'm going to be highlighting the beautiful state of New Hampshire. And to do so, I'm going to welcome Tom Boucher, who is the CEO of Great New Hampshire Restaurants Incorporated, to the show. Now, before we jump in, I wanted to say, quick reminder, if you're enjoying the show or if you like the episode or enjoy the past episodes, please, if you could leave me a 5-star review, whether you're following along on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast, that would mean the world. Your support helps bring this channel and these stories to the greater food service and food industry. So please, if you could leave a 5-star review, that would mean the world. Now, let's go ahead and dive in. Now, Tom, he oversees one of the most beloved dining concepts in the state of New Hampshire. Included within it are T-Bones, Cactus Jack's, Copper Door, and he employs about 800 people across his businesses. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about the ins and outs of his business, the operations, also getting into reward systems that he has set up for his team members to help keep motivation, engagement, and making sure that everyone's aligned to the 7 core values of his business. Tom is also a passionate advocate for small businesses, and his leadership has earned him recognition on major national outlets, some like Fox, CNN, among others. And under Tom's guidance, Great New Hampshire Restaurants has also made a significant impact on the community, on his community through charity, which has donated over 7 figures back into the local area, which is incredible. His dedication to his employees and his community is truly inspiring, and that comes out here in the episode. A little background on New Hampshire. So the food service scene food service industry in New Hampshire, it's growing, and it's a vital part of the state's economy. It contributes just over $2.5 billion annually in restaurant sales, and the industry employs over 60,000 people, making it one of the largest job sectors in the state. Again, if you could leave a 5-star review, that would be amazing. But without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Tom. All right, Tom, welcome to the Titans of Food Service podcast. I appreciate you taking time to come on here and meet with me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for finding us, and I'm looking forward to talking.
Yeah. I've never been to New Hampshire before. I've been to many different states within the Northeast. What city do you physically live in?
I live in Bedford, New Hampshire. It's a suburb of Manchester, which is New Hampshire's largest city, which is only 125,000 people. But that's New Hampshire in general. We're a state of 1.3 million people.
Were you born and raised in New Hampshire?
I was born just over the border in Massachusetts, but I was brought up in New Hampshire from age 4.
Okay, nice. I would imagine it's probably a pretty beautiful state. I was listening to a separate podcast and the guest on that was Joe DeCerna, and he didn't live in New Hampshire, but he lived in Vermont, which I believe is pretty close there to New Hampshire. And he's the founder of like Spartan Race. He purchased Tough Mudder. And so he has this farm out in Vermont, and he does like different challenges out there and hosts people and whatnot. Really cool. And I just thought, I listened to it last week and I thought, that'd be interesting. I'd love to take more time to travel that part of the country.
I actually did a Spartan race in Vermont, so it must have been one of his. And that was back when I was a little younger, but super fun. And actually, my daughter worked for a little while for Spartans.
Oh, wow. How funny. Look at that. Small world. So tell me, I know we talked a little off camera that you've been in the food business for 40 years, coming up on 40 years. How did you get into this industry?
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's not a very unusual story, although when I share it, people are surprised. But in the restaurant world, you either get into it from the ground up or you have a lot of money and buy a restaurant or start a restaurant with a lot of cash. I chose the former route, where I graduated from college, Merrimack College in Andover, Mass, with a degree in chemistry, and had a full academic scholarship to get my master's at Villanova. And I went for 6 months and just did some soul searching because, at 22 years old, what do you know? Not as much as you know now. And I'm glad I did the soul searching because I just couldn't see myself being in a lab coat, working in a laboratory, or being a professor or a teacher. I loved the studying and the analytics of it when I was in college, but when I looked at the career path, it just didn't resonate with me. So I left and came back home and started waiting tables at a restaurant called T-Bones, which is
Hmm.
now the company that I own.
How
That
funny
was
is
in
that?
19. I started waiting tables in 1987 at T-Bones in Hudson and Hudson, New Hampshire, and just worked my way up and became a founding owner in our other brand, Cactus Jacks,
Hmm.
in 1995, and then continued to grow. And in 2007, um, my partner Mark and I bought out the other two founders who were older, and we retired them. And we had since then had opened our new concept, Copper Door, which is more upscale. So we have two of those, and we opened another T-Bones, ironically, at the beginning of the pandemic, because we were already the steel was already up, and we had no choice but to keep moving forward.
So you go to Villanova. You thought potentially maybe you weren't be wearing a lab coat for a living, and
Right.
here you are getting into the food business. So you started T-Bones. Had T-Bones been around for like how long had T-Bones been around at that point?
So T-Bones, the original T-Bones was in Salem, New Hampshire. It opened in 1980, November 25th, 1984,
Wow.
and Hudson T-Bones was 1986, and then I graduated 1987, and that's when I started working for Hudson T-Bones.
And at the time when you started working at Hudson T-Bones, was there just one location? I think there's. Correct me
Well,
if I'm wrong,
It
but I
was
believe.
two at that point. So Salem was first in
Okay,
'84, and then Hudson was second in '86. Bedford was third in '89, and then came Cactus Jackson '95, and then came Copper Door in 2000. Sorry, pardon me. Derry T-Bones was next in 2004. Laconia T-Bones and Cactus Jacks was 2007, and then Copper Door was 2010. And then we
gotcha.
have Salem Copper Door, which was 2004 years ago, 2005 years ago, 2019.
When you were starting working at T-Bones, I would imagine as an employee of the business, how did you end up becoming an owner of the restaurant?
Yeah, well, I got lucky, and I also worked hard, but I did get lucky that the three founders, um, just I don't know, they saw something in me, and I also wasn't shy about asking for more responsibility and a leadership role. And I actually I remember sitting down with the three of them in 1994, asking for more responsibility, more leadership, and then that's when they offered me to become an investor and part owner and founder of Cactus Jacks in 1995. And then in 2000, I became an owner within the T-Bones group, again, just looking to grow and do more. And two, as I mentioned, two of the founders were older than me. One of them was 20 years older. So they saw it as a natural progression to keep me engaged and moving into a greater leadership role. In 2004, I remember requesting, I legitimately said, the two older ones were very absentee at that point. I was running the company and making all the decisions, and I asked for the CEO position, and they approved, and the rest is history.
Wow, how cool is that? It's always interesting. I've been doing this podcast now. I think I've done maybe 80, 85 episodes at this
Mhm.
point, and hearing people's journeys of how they got into the food industry. There's so many. It's funny that a lot of times people come in and then they can never get out. Like they stumbled upon it by happenstance, but then they
That's
find out
essentially
that
what,
they love
yeah,
it.
that's essentially what happened to me. And like I said, it's not an unusual story because many people that are in leadership roles or grew a company, or they just got bit by the bug. I mean, that's legitimately what happened to me. I was 22 years old. I just loved it. I loved the fast pace. I loved thinking on my feet. I loved engaging with employees and guests. And my first experience in a commercial kitchen was T-Bones in Hudson. I remember one of the managers came to me. Again, I was at that time 23, and said, "You should become a manager." And again, I'm 23. And I'm like, okay, sure. I thought he was going to ask me to be a dining room manager because I was a food server. Lo and behold, he says, "You should be a kitchen manager." And I said, okay. And I learned from the best. My partner, Mark, who was the third founder, He unfortunately passed away last November, unexpectedly at 66 years old. But he and I were partners for 38 years, and he taught me everything I knew about running operations in restaurants, particularly from the kitchen perspective. And then my other former partner, one of the founders, taught me everything to know about the business side of the business, learning what EBITDA means, learning how to, write and calculate a profit and loss statement. I literally learned the business side of the business hands on. That's probably my only regret. I wish I had taken more business classes in college. My only business class was economics 101, but there's nothing like hands-on learning, and that's what I did.
When I've talked to other restaurant owners, restaurant CEOs, presidents, a lot of times the word operations comes up. That it's a super important part of the business. I mean, obviously, there's so many moving parts to a restaurant, and nowadays you've got Grubhub and DoorDash, third-party platforms you get to deal with. And when you look at running the operations of your company, what are some of the things that are important to you when you look at at the individual unit level in terms of operations?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and ironically, there is a relationship between operations and chemistry, and I'll tell you how.
Okay.
One of the things that we're experts at, especially with 40 years of history, is we're really good at systems and controls, and that's important in operations for consistency in a restaurant is paramount, especially concepts like ours where we're made from scratch. So you've got a chef or a cook who is making an entree, and they go off memory, but they have to have the tools to be able to make that product, or in prep room, creating or making the blue cheese dressing or whatever it might be, because it's all made from scratch, and we don't expect people to memorize it. We have to give them the recipes and the specs and the tools and places to find that information. And the parallel that I draw on that with chemistry was I remember very vividly at least two professors that I had where, even though we were taught and lectured in the classroom setting, the tests and the quizzes were all open book. We could use our notes. We could use our books, which sounds crazy. Like, oh, that must be so easy. No, it was still incredibly difficult, but they gave us the tools to be able to find the answers that we need. And that's what I think we do really well, is provide the tools and the controls and the systems for our employees to execute at a very high level.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially as you've been doing this for 40 years, so I'm sure there's probably so many different scenarios, especially on the operations side. You talk about EBITDA, the financial side of things. I would probably venture to say that there's probably many, many, many scenarios that you've seen, and there's probably a few that maybe you haven't seen. In terms of, what about when a new person comes into the business? You're mentioning controls and tools, systems, processes. How do you train up a new person to come in and be able to fit into the culture and work within the systems and process and controls that you have in place?
Yeah, another great question. You know, One of the things that we're really proud of, and I am certain that's what contributes to our success, is that we have tremendous longevity, especially at the upper level of leadership. Our leadership team, there's 8 of us. We have a combined experience of 250 years just in our company alone.
Wow.
So that really sets the tone for our general managers, who also, every single one of our general managers has been with us for at least 10 years, some of them 20 years, some of them 30 years. So the culture is built in from the very highest levels, and it trickles down to the frontline employees. And again, we have frontline employees that have been with us for 30, 35 years. One of the things that we obviously have a training program. If you don't have a training program, what are you doing? But one of the things that we've found really exciting and very forward looking is we've always had a reward system and recognition system in our company, like every company does. Ours was, before last year, it was old school. You could recognize an employee for a great job done, and it was a monopoly looking kind of certificate that they could accumulate, and over time they'd be worth more money if they accrued more than 50, for example. And if they returned in 50 of those, we called them merits, they could return them in for a $500 bonus. And these are recognitions, could be for anything from a customer saying great service, or an employee going above and beyond and said, hey, I cleaned out the linen closet, just wanted to let you know. Whatever. There's, as you just indicated, there's hundreds and hundreds of things that happen in a restaurant every day. And we try to, as part of our culture, we try to find the things that people are doing right and coach them when they miss the mark. Well, one of the transition that we did last year, and it is absolutely fantastic. We engaged a company that is now, it's fully digital, where we can reward people on the spot via an app. I just did it. I just had lunch at one of our restaurants, and my steak came out amazing. And I looked up the broiler cook who was working that day, and his name's Lito. I said, hey, Lito, you nailed it. Awesome steak. And rewarded him with a $10 bonus. And that's a game changer, because that's been a struggle for this industry, is to recognize the kitchen employees. It's always the front of the house that gets recognized, because they're front and center for the customer, right? And so when a customer says, what an awesome steak, that may not make it back to that particular kitchen employee or to the butchers that cut that steak. And so now this has enabled, it's opened an entire door of recognition for these kitchen employees. And certainly the front of the house gets plenty of praise as well. But one of the unique things about how we reward people is you can only reward and give them a bonus if you attach it to one of our 7 core values. So one of our core values is executing greatness, and so that's the one that I picked for Lito today. And over time, Lito and our other 800 employees can accrue these dollars, and then there's a digital store where they can go in and purchase, Nike gift cards. They can purchase Apple Music. They can also purchase trade from other local establishments that we've done with them. So there might be a local retailer where we've given them our gift cards, and then they exchange, give them dollar for dollar for us. And we put those on the digital store at a 50% discount. So employees actually can get, 50% discount to go to a theme park, Canopy Lake down in Salem or whatever. So it's been fantastic. And I actually just got the report this morning. In 8 months this year, we've given out over $350,000 worth of rewards to frontline and manager employees. These are not bonus or performance related for managers. This is all peer-to-peer employee recognition, and equally, employees recognize managers when they're doing an exceptional job. So the real beauty of it is, it's not, employees aren't recognizing another employee for big dollar amounts. Every employee gets $5 a month to spend and recognize other employees. It's because of the way it's set up. It's like a Facebook page where there's a news feed. So everybody will see that I recognized Lito today, and Lito's going to feel fantastic. He could have gotten 0 for it, but to have the CEO and owner call out how he cooked a perfect steak, that means a lot to him. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because it's been a game changer for us.
Amazing. I read this book called the Great Game of Business, and it was all about kind of what you're talking about, where the person that wrote this book, he essentially he recognized that if he wanted to gamify his business in a way and
Mm.
recognize everybody within the company, that whether you're in this case maybe in culinary, or maybe you're a manager or one of the frontline employees, or someone a customer facing person, everybody has a unique and special role that they play in the overall health of the business, and they should be rewarded for that. Because if everybody's moving towards the same thing, in this case, if someone aligns with the 7 core values that you have, and I also love that they can reward each other as well. It, if everybody's pushing towards the same goals, the same values, who's that benefit? One, helps the company as a whole. I'm sure it probably helps profitability, but then also just the overall customer experience. And in the food business, it's all about repeat business. How can I give someone a wow experience and have them come back again into my operation again and enjoy another meal? And so I really love what you're doing. And Also too, just on a human level, being able to get that reward and recognition, it just kind of feels good. And I think $5, $10, it really makes a lasting impact on people for sure.
Yeah, and there are other ways they can earn rewards. We have something called 5 for 10, which again, it's just something that we came up with. But if an employee raises their hand and say at the end of the shift or before the shift, it's not that busy, and they say, "Hey, what can I clean that's not on a normal cleaning list? That's going to take me 10 minutes." Or yeah, 10 minutes. So maybe it's the coffee station cabinets underneath or something like that that just doesn't really get organized on a daily or weekly basis. And so they'll do that and they go to the manager and say, I just did this, come check it out. And they worked on it for 10 minutes and then they get a $5 reward. So there's so many opportunities like that with this reward system. And I'll also say that it really drives those core values, which every company has, not every, but most companies have some kind of culture and value system, but we really walk that talk. And in fact, prior to last year, we sent a survey out to employees saying, how do you like our 6 core values? Like, do you feel like this is really driving our company? Do you feel like you're part of these 6 core values? And are we missing one? And overwhelmingly, teamwork was one that they said we really. I mean, the restaurant's not going to operate unless everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? One chink in the chain, if the dishwasher goes down, the whole place stops, right? And so we took that real seriously, and we added that as a core value, and it's actually our number one chosen reward on the platform now is teamwork. And I'll share one more thing with you. Maybe some of your younger listeners. I'm headed towards the fourth quarter of my career, but one of the things that I've always dreamed of was if you're a young person and you have passion about the restaurant industry and you've got 5, 6, 7 friends that are also passionate about it, how fantastic would it be to recruit, call it 20 people, and you each own 5% of the business, and you do a startup restaurant, and all 20 of you have to work every single position on the schedule. So it's rotating. So you're the floor manager one week. Next week you're on dish. Next week you're serving tables. Next week you're on window. And I just think, I don't know if it exists out there, but I think that would just be such a unique proposition for any young person looking to get into the business, and finding people that have that same passion and aren't afraid to get their hands dirty and work hands on. I mean, I did it for 15 years. I worked in kitchens. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was washing dishes in our busiest restaurant, trying to give a break for the employees that were working very hard.
And by doing that as well, I like what you said. You get 20 people, and everybody do, you have to do all the jobs within the restaurant, and really learn the business. You can, I know we talked a little bit off camera about why I started this podcast, and my dad told me, Nick, there's no books to read. You have to just get out there and do it. And I'm in food
Mhm.
service sales, so I literally would just go. I'm here in California, so I'd walk down Pacific Coast Highway, where a lot of restaurants are kind of grouped together, and with a bag of stuff, and I had drinks and whatever I had at the time, and you go one by one by one. Now, did I sell anything? Was I very successful? Candidly, no. But it was a good way, kind of to what you're saying is I'm learning the different, positions, and I'm learning the different, the ins and outs of the food broker world. And here I am 9 years later. Am I an expert? I mean, I'm always learning every day, but it kind of helped me with that continuous learning. And now when I look at my team, it's, when they have an issue or when they have a success, I can see the world through their eyes because I've been there. I've done
Yes.
it. And it's really helped me in my business for sure.
Well, and I think that's an important distinction that I've had the pleasure and I'm blessed to be able to have worked in every single position through my entire career. And one of my partners is a silent investor, and he's great. He's a great friend of mine. He's been with us for 15 years, and he's never worked a day in the restaurant. But he's very cognitive of the fact that he knows nothing about operations, and literally stays away from making suggestions regarding how the restaurant operates because he knows he just hasn't had that hands-on experience, and it's vital. It is vital to have that experience so that you understand what it's like to be a dishwasher on a Saturday night. And
Mhm.
that's I think that's one of the things that also has made us very successful. We don't put the bartenders on a pedestal like a lot of restaurants do. Oh, you're a bartender. No. You're as important as that 19-year-old hostess or that 30-year window cook in the kitchen. Or we have a kitchen manager that's been with us for 38 years, and he's a kitchen manager, and he loves it, and he's passionate about it, and that's what he likes. And he's as important to me and to our leadership team as is our director of kitchen operations. Like that's, I mean, of course, there's supervisory levels, but we don't put people on pedestals, and that's I think that resonates tremendously with our 800 employees.
What it sounds like too. I mean, it's your culture as well. Of retaining people and people coming to work every day and being proud of what they do. As a business, it significantly hurts a business when you have high turnover. But when someone can come in and feel like, hey, this is family. This is something that I enjoy doing. For better or for worse, in American society, we spend 5 days at work on average and 2 days off, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to say I spend most of my time out enjoying sitting at the beach, but it's not. It's at work with the people that I work with. I spend the most amount of time doing that, and people have to love what they're doing. So I like what you're doing. That everybody is important. Everybody plays a role. You can be rewarded for doing that as well, and on top of that, you can also reward each other too. Um, so I think that's a really smart thing that you're doing. Could I ask? Can I ask a question? You don't have to answer this. What
Mhm.
app are you using for the
Yeah,
rewards?
so I'm happy to answer it, as long as your listeners let them know that they heard it from me. It's called motivosity.com.
Motivosity?
Yeah. And they
Mo-
have, they have thousands of clients, and we're one of the very few restaurant hospitality clients that they have, which is surprising to me because it's a natural fit
yeah.
for the hospitality industry because we're all so busy working in our business that we're not sitting behind a computer or having 2-hour business meetings. As you know, it's our kitchen managers get there at 6:30 in the morning and they're straight out until 3:30 in the afternoon. And
Hmm.
so for them to take time, now all they're going to do is pull this up and take 10 seconds to reward someone and recognize them. And that's why I'm saying it's been a really great tool for us, and
Yeah.
it's perfect for the industry.
Yeah. I was with kind of changing gears a little bit. I was
Hmm.
with some friends of mine that are also entrepreneurs, and yesterday we had a conversation topic, and I think you might be a good person to ask this question to because you've mentioned your control systems, processes, and managers. Um, a lot of if you look at like a lot of very large businesses, like let's take like a ConAgra or a Pepsi or somebody like that, they have very robust training systems. And that's not just
Hmm.
for it's for employees. It's also for managers. They're constantly cultivating their management team. A lot of times, businesses like my size, we've got about 30 employees. You have your managers in place, but you're not cultivating their talent. You're not training them. And I did like a reflection yesterday about my management team of yeah, we have them constantly cultivating their teams, but are we training the managers?
Yes.
In your business, how does that work?
So we don't do it every year, but I would say, every 3 or 4 years, we, well, we just did it about 4 years ago. We engage an exterior third party company that is experts at this in training and teaching management skills, and we put them through that. And of course, as time moves on, you have newer managers and things like that. So we had to get through the pandemic, but we're probably due for exactly what you're talking about next year. We are having a training session for every front of the house employee in November. So that's 400 employees that we're having a training session for. But to your point, it's it's critical that you continue the management training because, especially, every single one of our managers started as a frontline employee. So
Mhm.
the training they got is from the manager that promoted them to an assistant manager. So that's all that they know. So we think it's important for them to get a perspective from outside of our company, um, as far as how to lead and how to be a good leader.
Yeah, that makes sense. When it comes to, so you have your management team in place. Have you ever done a skip level, a skip meeting, essentially where you go to the employees directly? The manager, I would imagine, would know, but go to them directly and coach them, or do you leave it mostly to the managers to handle that role?
No, the managers handle that, and it's again, it's just a training program that we've developed and perfected over decades.
Sure. When you look, I know you mentioned you're in the fourth quarter of your career. When you look at the final quarter, what is something that you still want to achieve that you've not yet achieved?
Um, well, I'm gonna share. I'll share one thing with you that we did achieve, and it's something that I'm
Yeah,
passionate about continuing,
please.
and then I'll tell you the second thing. Um, One of the things that we created 10 years ago was a charitable foundation. It's called Great New Hampshire Restaurants Charitable Trust, and the website, the acronym is feednh.org, and we really honed in on that acronym. We're a fundraising organization, and when we raise funds, we then turn around and contribute to other New Hampshire nonprofits, specifically only New Hampshire. And they have to fall in one of these four categories, which leads to the FEED acronym. They have to be a nonprofit helping families, elderly, education, and the disadvantaged. And the families, elderly, and education as it relates to hospitality. Those are really focus areas for us because families and elderly, that's our customers. Like that's who our customers are, and for the most part, that's who our employees are. Right? They've got elderly in their family, and of course, many of them have their own families. So that was a really good um, initiative that we created that employees really got behind because who doesn't like a company that participates and gives back to their communities? Especially, as you know, I don't know how old you are, but the younger generation certainly is very cognitive of businesses that do good in their communities.
That's right.
And I'm proud to say that over the 10 years, last year we hit the milestone of we gave back over $1 million, to be exact, $1.1 million to other New Hampshire
Wow.
nonprofits in 10 years, which means a lot to our employees. That
Yeah.
it just shows them that it's not just a greedy company trying to bring wheelbarrows of money to the bank. That we're a good community minded organization, and so that's something that as I continue into the fourth quarter, I want to see that continue to grow and expand, and we've got ways to do that beyond what we've already done. And then I think something that I'm working towards is, and we already have kind of a hybrid model of this.
Mhm.
Many, like the people that are on our leadership team, and then many of our general managers, they actually are small equity owners in the company, not profit sharing. They have true shareholder voting rights and share in the profitability of the restaurants that they are an owner in. And so I think we have about 20 employees now that own a small piece of the company. And
Wow.
my goal is to continue to grow that and to hope maybe someday it's 100% employee owned. Like that would be my dream, truly.
Incredible. Tom, I just want to say thank you for coming on here. I always learn so much from this, and also just your generosity and just the way that you view your company and your people. It's truly it's inspiring. I think would be the word I would use. Because not everybody has that mentality.
Mm,
Some people are just money but you're really giving back to your people. You're giving back to your community. So thank you so much. And again, thank you for coming on here and
yeah,
sharing your
thank
story.
you. I appreciate the kind words, and I'll just leave you with this: that as the CEO of Great New Hampshire Restaurants, I take my responsibility incredibly serious. That the livelihood and happiness of 800 employees rests with me, and I take that very serious.
Yeah. Incredible. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Nice to chat.